is Straight to the Source, your destination for food, views and big ideas. Brought to you by two of the best in the business, Tawnya, Bahr and Lucy Allon. Join them to discover some of Australia's most dynamic food, hospitality and agribusiness leaders.
Hello and welcome to Food, Views and Big Ideas. I'm Tawnya Bahr.
And I'm Lucy Allon, and this is the podcast from us here at Straight to the Source.
In this podcast, we will be introducing you to the people who are driving our food and hospitality industry forward, whether it be on the land, in the water, in the kitchen, or from the boardroom.
Each of our guests are playing a significant role in the evolution of Australia's food identity and culture, and we want you to know who they are, their views and their big ideas. We're coming to you today from Camaragal land, and we'd like to begin by paying our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Our guest today is the dynamic Fiona Aveyard from Outback Lamb, which is located just outside Dubbo in country New South Wales. And I think, Tawnya, dynamic is a word that really sums Fiona up.
It is. It's actually a bit of an understatement, actually.
She's a whirlwind. She's a force to be reckoned with.
She sure is, and we were lucky she found us, and it's been a ride. You know, she's fifth generation farmer, just really paving her way herself on this value added product, and taking her husband Bill and the kids along for the ride. So it's a really interesting story, and it's not finished yet.
No, and it's been incredible to be able to assist her on that journey, and meet her where she needed guidance and assistance and really see it come to life, like see her idea and vision come to life. You said earlier, Tawnya, to me that Fiona really takes the sheep by the horns, and that's certainly something.
I said bull by the horn.
I like sheep by the horns. Being a lamb farmer and all of that. Anyway, let's dive in and hear Fiona's story.
Fiona, it's been a while in the making. It must be pretty exciting to be at the pointy end and to see this new project come to life.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot happening. We've been, I feel like I've been talking about Outback Lamb for a long time now, but we've only been going for about 4 years. And but we're just about to, get into our next part of the adventure.
Can we back up a bit and talk about your family?
So we live at Tullamore, right in central New South Wales, and my family's been farming in this area since settlement in 1886. And we live, for people to get their bearings, we're about an hour or 100 k's southwest of Dubbo. And I always kind of giggle to myself because farmers or country people never say where they're from. They just say where they're near, but we're near Dubbo. So, yes, and we've been farming out here since 1886. I'm a fifth generation farmer, and so is my husband. He is from the next village along called Trundle, and neither of us had to travel very far for romance, it seems.
How old were you guys when you met?
It was in our late 20s. We'd spent quite a bit of time away. I think it's pretty normal for farming kids to do a trade or a uni and spend a couple of years working for other people before they, commit to a life out here. It's not always, often people have a romantic notion of life in regional Australia, and sometimes it's not always that, and particularly out here in dryland country where we're not on rivers and it's at the mercy of the weather a little bit. It can be a tricky living at times, but, fun as well.
Is that something you would advise, though, to get off the land and explore and then come back?
Yeah, I would, absolutely. It's, just to have that life. I think anyone working in a family business, to have the life experience to work for other people and see how they do things, open your eyes a little bit. But every day you would learn something new, whether it's how you want to do things or how you don't want to do things.
So we are going to talk about Outback Lamb because it's very much, it's gone from a side hustle to a real business offering, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. We certainly, we are, without a doubt, very traditional mixed farmers. This area is renowned for wheat and sheep. It's and sheep for meat and for wool. But what we're trying to do is really imagine what farming's going to look like for that next generation. And we're seeing a lot of change out here in terms of corporate investment and big farming enterprises and small farms going by the wayside, and just trying to find our place and our groove in that transgression to, whatever the future holds.
Where do you think the future is going from that point of view?
I don't know. We can probably look stateside and see like how farming is done in America and imagine that we will be, that a lot of the land will be held by fewer and fewer people. I think that a lot of Australians connect themselves to that identity of regional Australia, whether, casting back to when we rode on the sheep's back and all that sort of thing. But the reality is quite different today. And I think that Australian farming, we are mass producers for the export market, so we're really reliant on international demand, and where we fit into that on a world scale is really up to us, I think, as we determine the direction we want to go.
So with the value adding, I mean, you're taking your existing business model and you've got generations behind you. What do the generations before you think of what you and your husband are doing and the way that you're farming today?
They're very supportive. Like every generation does it differently. And certainly my dad, and he doesn't farm the same way that his dad did. They were originally, it was all merino grazing country. And in Dad's generation, they evolved into cropping. And they're generally supportive. Often it can be a little bit tricky to navigate because, they do, particularly, we're trying to anticipate where the market's going. And when people are successful, and the focus of the previous generation was really in meeting those world markets for like an emerging world middle class for protein, and as export got easier and all that sort of stuff, Australia really grew. And for us to stay commercial and viable, we were able to use technology and sort of our entrepreneurship and the can-do attitude to evolve the breeding stock into really highly productive animals, to control the landscape in some ways with underground water and all that sort of thing, to develop better wheat varieties with shorter growing periods and better suited to the climate and resistant to disease. So it's really been this huge focus since industrialisation, really, for farming to be highly commercial, really productive, and concentrating on yield and performance of crops and animals. And I think that we will evolve from that a little bit as we get a real awareness of the cost of climate change. It'll change how we farm, but it'll also, as people really push, not even so much government, we're seeing it here in Australia today, as people really push for greater responsibility by companies and individuals, it's going to change how farming's done. And we're certainly, just as concerned about the environment as any of our urban counterparts. So what we're trying to do is really farm in a way that adapts to a changing climate and we all see ourselves as custodians of the land. We want to leave it in a better way than we found it. And so how we're moving our business now is basically, to really simplify it, it's about running less livestock and trying to capture greater value along the supply chain so that we're not pushing the animals or the country to the levels that we need to in order to stay viable. It's not just human greed that makes people keep doing it. We've just been getting busier and busier and busier and expanding our land holdings and increasing our flocks and everything just in order to stay in the same place. So it's the market that's driving it, but we really have to be in front of that market and think how we want to do things and communicate that story really well to the customer. And that's what we're trying to do.
With regards to support out there, have you been able to get support from the government?
It's, how would I explain that? Yeah, yes, in some ways. Like we do access things like our local land service that the government, like their state government initiatives that give you advice on and training on different programs like regenerative agriculture and all that sort of stuff. So we do access that kind of thing. And then when we started selling the Outback Lamb sausage rolls and that type of thing, I was completely overwhelmed by the support locally because I assumed that our target market would be in Sydney, and that we'd be looking at sort of quite a conscious consumer who was really wanting to have a greater connection to their food source and learn more about provenance and all that sort of thing. But to be honest, that's really what elevated us to the point now, because it's just that local demand and people wanting to have our products at events pre-COVID that really gave us the confidence to go a little bit harder and strive a little bit more.
But before you did that, you were also doing box deliveries, weren't you?
Well, that's how we started, yeah. So I was trying to reimagine how we might farm in the future, and I was wanting to, go down that regenerative path and have multi-species cropping and step away a little bit from a wheat cropping program where you're really looking at monocultures and that sort of thing. And livestock has been increasing in value, so it was a great opportunity. And I just did a webpage and started selling boxed meat to friends and family, and it very quickly did well. So we moved to wholesale, and we were delivering lamb into Sydney and Wollongong, and then...
And were you delivering directly? Excuse me. Were you delivering directly?
We were. So I did a program called Farmers to Founders, which was, I did a program called Regional Platters in Dubbo, where we had to do a pitch to the local government, and they were talking about how we might grow our business. And I collaborated with the Gourmet Goat Lady and Farmer Brown's Pastured Eggs, and we did a joint pitch, which we won. And the prize was a $15,000 cash check that we put towards a refrigerated truck so that we could cart our whole bodies and the eggs into Sydney. So that was a great start for us.
I love how you guys collaborated. You had a problem and collectively you solved it, because logistics is often the problem.
It is always out here. Like, we're used to travelling, but it's getting a product to Sydney in a time frame, and labour is such a big component of that, in an affordable way is really hard. So it was something we could share the labour and share the truck, and it was a great way for us to grow our business and get established.
So meanwhile, I'm just trying to paint a picture here. You're doing that. That's all happening. And then you are in your kitchen developing a recipe and creating these sausage rolls. And the reason being is?
Well, when we did the program in Dubbo for regional platters, we were invited by the Dubbo Shire Council to do some local produce at a beer festival they were having. And our big push for what we're doing is whole animal consumption. We're very much about nose to tail eating. And so it was not about, how many lamb cutlets we could throw on the barbie and sell. We really thought about it, and I was like, well, we could slow cook something, do lamb rolls, or lots of ideas went through our heads. But in the end, I went to our local baker in Condobolin, and I was like, I really want to do this gourmet lamb sausage roll. I think that it'll be great with a beer. And so we did. We just killed a couple of lambs and used all of the meat from it and made lamb sausage rolls, and they were just straight away we knew we were onto something pretty special because they were a huge hit. So it was great.
When we first met, I remember you telling me I was peddling them out of my boot.
That's pretty much it. It was, like anyone first starting out, there's a lot goes on behind the scenes that makes it not look quite as professional as you should be.
So what were those steps like with the local bakery? Did they come up with the formula, or did you come up with the recipe, or how did that work?
It was literally as you described it. We were in the kitchen. I was experimenting with different recipes, and because I've got children, they were, the taste testers. We were running through different flavors and all that sort of thing. And I was just really conscious. I wanted to have something. I know a sausage roll is, not the healthiest option out there, but I wanted something that was the healthiest version of a sausage roll. So I was like, well, I'll just do 100% meat. But of course, it's got no flavor. So you start modifying and creating and doing different things. And ultimately, we came up with the recipe that we've going to go national with today.
It's all very exciting, once you have a vision like that. And when you reflect back, how does that make you feel? Because you correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at it at each stage, but you don't know what's after each step. You know what I mean?
No, that's right. Certainly when I started Outback Lamb, there was a pain point, as often they talk about in business development for us, that we wanted to change how we farmed and not be so focused on that productivity and yield. And so we really wanted to do things differently, and boxed lamb seemed a natural way to do that. And as I said, it evolved really quickly. And if you'd asked me in those early days if I'd be peddling sausage rolls out of the back of my van, I would have laughed you out of the room, honestly, because while I'm a mother and a farm cook and a home cook, I'm never, ever dreamt. I've been a farmer all my life. I've always worked on the farm. I did ag at uni. I'm always outdoors, and, I cook because I like to eat, but it certainly was never a passion of mine. And the fact that I'm here today is, the humour's not lost on me at all.
Oh, well, you've had some very talented chefs come visit your farm not too long ago. Didn't you have the 3 blue ducks rock up at your porch?
We did, yes. We had Andy, Darren and Mark from the 3 Blue Ducks came out and did an episode of their TV series. They came at an amazing time, actually, because it was our first crop post-drought, and we'd had about a week before they came, we'd had a massive hailstorm, we were insured, but you never insured for a full value, like you just insure for, to cover your costs and that type of thing, because it is a random event. So we're feeling a little glum, to be honest. It was like, oh, dear God, we've got a film crew and some celebrity chefs coming, and I sort of was thinking, oh, this is just going to be a circus. And then they got there, and it was just a lift and an inspiration. They're amazing guys and so genuine and so driven with their passion for the producers and the connection to the source of the food and the provenance and the work that goes in it. And their understanding of that whole process is really amazing. And I often used to say, we always get told that people, they don't know where their food comes from. But that is definitely a two-way street, because for me, as a producer, we just didn't know where our food went to once it left the farm gate. And what we're doing at the moment has been a real education and an enlightenment for myself to be part of the process beyond the farm gate and understand what people want and what they think they're getting and how we can deliver that.
And that's such a valuable point, because it's from a producer's point of view, understanding where your food is going, and from the consumer's point of view is where it's come from. And I mean, that's very much straight to the source for the last 10 years. So this has been really terrific, taking chefs out to farms, but also taking producers like yourselves into the restaurants and into the city and into, food service, so that you can see what actually that distribution from manufacturing to distribution to holding the whole value chain.
And that's very much the connection that we found with Mark, Darren and Andy, was that they're running a business and they've got to be commercial, but they're also so passionate about the environment and farmers and producers that they pay that premium, that they do what they do in order to be true to their beliefs. And we're the same. Like we have to be commercial because we don't get government subsidies, we don't get any assistance, but we also love the land that we live on, and we do see ourselves as those custodians for the future, and that responsibility weighs heavy on you sometimes. So you've got to weigh up that balance between a commercial enterprise and the enterprise that you really want to have. And for us, that journey is Outback Lamb, and trying to, cross that chasm and really do something that's just a little bit different, and hopefully not lead the way, not for everyone, because the world definitely still needs to be fed, and Australians are, great producers, but certainly out here in this country where we're 500 millimetre rainfall and we're a bit more susceptible to changing weather patterns, I think it's a great path forward.
What is that you say? I'm not saving what is saving the world? One sausage roll at a time?
No, it sounds, I do. Sometimes I listen to myself and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not saving the world one sausage roll at a time. But we are definitely using the sausage roll that we're producing as a vehicle for us to farm a little bit differently than we were in the past.
When you talk about value proposition and actually understanding that's where it lies. When chefs actually get out into regions and can see the way their food is produced and the ingredients are made, it does give them a different value proposition when they see the price list come through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really, Australians are very fortunate. We do have some of the cheapest food in the world because we are such great producers. But the thing is that they really have to start to become aware of is that there is an environmental cost, and that cost is paid somewhere along the line. It's either paid by the consumer, it's paid by the producer, or it's paid by the environment. And if that cost isn't factored in somewhere along the line, it's not a sustainable model. And that's the difference in guys like the Three Blue Ducks and the people you're dealing with through Straight to the Source. They really get that connection and they understand that every person has a role to play. And they said to me once, if you think you can't make a difference as one small person, then you've never been in a room with a mosquito.
Oh.
That it has an impact, no matter how small you think you are.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I think I'll use that. So with these sausage rolls, so here you are, you've got the local bakery making the sausage rolls. You're providing them to events and local sporting events and activations. In terms of scaling it up, I mean, I do have an inside scoop here on the way that this has progressed, but it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No, it's definitely not, and certainly it's way outside my comfort zone. As I said before, I'm genuinely a farmer. Like I am someone who is out in the paddocks with the animals every day on the tractors, doing all that sort of thing. So to try and brand ourselves and promote ourselves is a real step outside your comfort zone. We did it really easily in the drought and really cheaply, I might add, through social media and that type of thing. And it was a learning curve. I did a lot of courses and really tried to, get better at it. And at the end of the day, I just realised that it was all a bit of fun, to be honest. It is just social media. You just got to put it out there and it'll be gone tomorrow, and not to take yourself too seriously, but also to use that medium to really share your story, which is what we've been so focused on, because I think so often the consumer, and particularly urban and consumers, they have an idea of farmers that is so far removed from the reality. Like I think that often they think we're all like Barnaby Joyce and that we're against, climate change and we're this and that, we're that. But we're actually the front line of defence against, climate change and food security. And we really understand that so well. So farming's on the front line of both of those things. And it's what we do is really important, and we get that. And so sharing our farming story for me was very important to say to people, hey, we're not environmental vandals, or we're not, animal welfare is a huge priority for us on the farm. We're really at the leading edge of things like pain relief, and we're non-mules with our merinos. We're really trying to meet that market and evolve our sheep into something that's really suitable to a modern consumer. And it's just so important that the consumer hears that story and understands it and knows that it's not just me at West Point Farm that's doing it. Like so many farmers are just like us.
I think you've said you're trying to hit that sweet spot where the planet, profits, and community are all winners. I think that's even on your website, isn't it?
It is.
I love that.
It's a nice grabby thing, isn't it? A little bit harder to achieve in reality, but it's definitely that I remind myself of that nearly every day. Planet, profits, and community. What can we do? Just keep striving.
Okay, so I'm now in the city and I am looking for a sausage roll that has that Providence community in its, paddock to plate back to the farm and that full traceability. Walk me through what that looks like today.
So we were listed with our lamb on the Straight to the Source webpage. And I think back in January of this year, you guys had to pivot because of COVID, and you reached out with an hour's consultation, which I jumped at the opportunity because I was wanting to get into retail and really scale our product, which, I mean, the irony is not lost on me there either, that we're trying to step away from a commodity product, moving into another commodity product that I need to sell volumes of in order to be viable. And so I talked to you and I just laid it all out on the table and said, I want to get big, you know, we want to be in the city, we want to be nationwide and maybe even export. I'd spent some time in Taiwan and explored some early opportunities there and done a little bit of market research. And I think that I still think there's an opportunity there. So after talking to you, you were like, I think we can really help. Let's come up with a bit of a strategy. And you introduced me to some amazing pastry chefs and people who really know what they're doing, some guys in production and with distribution and all that sort of stuff in play already. And we just really sat down and strategized and came up with a plan to make those dreams come to fruition.
And now we're at the pointy end. And
we're right at the pointy end.
And I must say, yes, you and I have worked closely on this, but there is a team at Straight to the Source. So we've all been on this journey with you, you know, with the cheerleading on the sidelines. And it is an exciting time that it's about ready to hit the market. And when it does, I don't know that there's a product like it on the market.
No, I think I was incredibly naive starting off, as I think anyone who's, you know, doing an entrepreneurial style business is blessedly naive, that I thought to myself, oh, how hard can it be to put 2 sausage rolls in a box and put them on a shelf?
But these aren't just any old sausage rolls. So here we're using Provenance flour, which is single origin flour, using Australian butter. You're using skilled pastry chefs behind the scenes. You've got your single origin lamb. You've got your secret herbs and spices and a whole hell of a lot of love going into this. Would you agree? Am I missing something in that recipe?
No, that is all of it. So it is definitely a premium product. There's no doubt about it. And it's like something I would make in my kitchen at home to feed my own family. So we've been very conscious of that. It's not got a whole heap of rubbish in it or filling. It's not your run-of-the-mill servo sausage roll by any means. It's eons above that in terms of quality.
And how are you, once they're available across the country, how are you going to maintain the integrity of the product? That's
been part of the process of getting the team, you know, with the production crew and everything that are working on the product. They've got great protocols and strategies and procedures in place. And I think that because they're already doing things on a commercial scale, they're expert bakers and master chefs and pastry chefs, it's really going to be, I think they know what they're doing. And that's, you know, part of the reason. They do know what they're doing. Yeah. That is definitely the reason why we, you know, chose them to be part of this journey with us.
Oh, well, I'm excited. You know, it's always wonderful when you know, we've been for 10 years Straight to the Source working with primary producers and making all of these wonderful friendships. And I feel like, Fiona, you and I mean, we've had many conversations, and I really look forward to when the sausage rolls are in the shops and everyone else can have the benefit and the beautiful luxury of tasting one of your sausage rolls and understanding the journey that you've gone on. You know, it's a challenge because, like you said, you are on the land, you are a farmer, but yet you are now going into this whole other world.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, I really recommend it to anyone. Like, it is great, definitely in your 40s and as I, you know, rocket into my 50s, to get out of your comfort zone and do things that challenge you and try new things. And I think, though, that I probably wouldn't have done it if we didn't have that pinch point here at home, where we really, with the drought and the way that played out, that we just really want to be in a much better position going into the next drought. And the awareness that the climate really is changing around us, and what we do really has to be aware of that and try to do things a little differently.
Well, I think you're absolutely inspiring. You inspire me every time I talk to you, actually. So
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And we look forward to having you on again and seeing, you know, where the next chapter what the next Outback Lamb maybe product is. I don't know. Is there some insight there?
Well, yeah, because I think it's quite addictive, isn't it? Like when you start to do something, and we are only, well, I want to say weeks away from a launch, but COVID has slowed down a couple of things for us. We've definitely got a few ideas in the pipeline for how to expand the range in terms of our own supply channels and that type of thing. I'm doing some work at the moment on building an on-farm micro-abattoir so that we can really manage the animal from woe to go, that we're not reliant on outside sources and that bit of travelling. And it'll also give us greater control over that nose-to-tail consumption and being able to find markets for everything from the skin to the offal and all that sort of stuff. So really gaining maximum value out of an animal that's had a great life but has passed for the purpose of human consumption, but to respect that by absolutely utilising every bit of them.
Well, we look forward to bringing a group of chefs out on a Straight to the Source tour when we get back on the road. So keep the kettle on. We will be there.
We would love to have you. That's how we share our story, is by not just through social media, but we do farm tours and all that sort of thing, because we really do try to have an open gate policy. And so people understand that we don't do anything that we're not proud of, and that farmers, really are doing their utmost to look after their animals and the welfare of their animals and all that sort of thing. So we have people out at the farm all the time, and I'd love to host a crew of you guys. I think you'd have an absolute ball.
Yeah, I think we would too. Now, can I ask you before we close, who would you like us to have on this podcast?
Well, I mean, I have spoken to them at length, but I think the guys from the Three Blue Ducks are pretty special because they have such a passion about food that is from the farm and the connection that they have with the farmer. And I think it probably fits in really well with what you guys do. Yeah.
Well, Lucy and I know those guys, so we might have to shoot Darren a little text and say, come on.
They're just such great advocates for sharing our message. Like, they're the conduit between the producer and the consumer. And it's a bit like good butchers as well, that when we started selling the whole bodies and all that sort of thing, it's really hard for butchers to deal with farmers because, we're hard to track down. We don't get mobile service, or sometimes we're not in mobile service. Sometimes we're not on the landline. You just can't reach us. And it would be easier, I think, running a business to put in your order every Thursday for the following week with your wholesale distributor for the boxes of meat that you would like. But those butchers are the real heroes, and then the chefs, because they can break down the bodies and they know how to utilise all the animal, and they really go out of their way to get the best products they can for their customers. And I just think that really has to be valued at the consumer end.
Could not agree more. Okay, absolutely wonderful to talk to you, Fiona. I just have so much admiration and respect for all that you and your family do, and the journey that you're on. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be on a little bit of it with you.
Well, thank you very much for helping be a part of us sharing that story.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We really hope you enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed the conversation. You'll find links to anything mentioned in today's chat in the show notes. We have some more extraordinary guests lined up, and we would love you to join us again. So please make sure you're following us on your favourite podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. We'd also love to hear any of your feedback, good or bad, or perhaps you've got a guest you'd love to hear from. You can let us know. And the best way to stay up to date with what we're doing, who we're talking to, and where you'll find us around the country is to become part of the Straight to the Source community at straighttothesource.com.au/community. Until next time.